400 off-road race. Tough conditions took a heavy toll with half the field failing to finish. High drama as one of South Africa's top riders is seriously injured. South African racing history is made in the motorcycle section. And another victory for a husband and wife team in muddy conditions. The splendours of Sun City again played host recently to the Camel Sun City 400, the traditional pipe opener to the South African off-road season. Although the event does not count towards the South African Championship, it always draws a big field and is one of the highlights of the year.
So there's just a bit of marking.
What do you sort of lose, about 10 Ks?
10 Ks, that's 6, 10, 12 Ks at the most.
Fantastic.
But the muddy going and all that was fuel consumption will make up for the distance. It's going to be tough. Guys thought the Roof Africa was tough. They're going to know about off-road racing today in muddy conditions.
Heavy rain in the Pilanesberg in the week prior to the event almost forced organiser Klaus Degener to call off the race. Last-minute route changes saw the race go ahead, and in the pits it was business as usual.
Well, normally being first night would be a big advantage because you kick up dust and everybody else battles a bit. But in this case, with the mud, I think it's a bit of a disadvantage. By the time the other guys have got there, we'll be showing them the way and it'll help them, I think. So in this case, it might not be a big advantage, but we'll see what happens out there.
As always, there were last-minute preparations to be made, with the weather and the conditions the major talking points.
A little bit of mud is an advantage because you don't have the dust. But a mud bath is another thing, you know, and that's really a problem because I haven't got anybody to help push if I get stuck, and that is a major problem.
With the race distance cut back slightly, it meant competitors would have to complete 4 laps of about 80 kilometres instead of the intended 100 kilometres. There were separate routes for the cars and motorcycles, with the cars being flagged off at 15-second intervals. Although a number of top competitors like Bucks Carolyn and Richard Schilling were missing from the field, there was a quality entry for the Camel Sun City 400. With no championship points at stake in the Pilanesberg, Carolyn and Schilling were competing in the Parker 400 in America. Derek Pinoy and wife Stephanie were quickly into their stride in Klaus Degener's Duckham's Chenoweth. Pinoy has twice won the Camel Sun City 400 and is always a top contender. The race cam gives a good idea of the tricky conditions, with water and mud the biggest problems for crews. Veteran Harry Roscoe in the Protea Card Race Co. was also going well in the early stages, with Pop's Playground, a disused quarry, a feature of the route that provided plenty of action. There was plenty of close racing, with Class 9 contenders Robert Walk and former champion Fred Levesque in his new Motortech Chenoweth single-seater making short work of a back marker. Abdul Variawa was one of those favoured to win Class 2, with Richard Leake giving up the navigator's seat to take a turn behind the wheel of a Toyota Hilux 4x4. Pilanesberg local Audrey Rutz was putting Wolf-Peter Fumfai under pressure in Class 2, with home turf knowledge a factor in his favour. The quad racer class is growing in popularity, with Francois Coetzee always the man to beat. One of the most interesting vehicles on the local off-road scene is the Chenoweth Mini Mag, driven by Tom Smith. The car's powered by a Yamaha motorcycle engine and is belt-driven. An air filter problem gave Smith a few worries, but the car again showed it has plenty of potential. Stratford Voigt switched from driving his Toyota to riding a quad racer and surprised himself and everyone else by eventually winning the class. The Pinoy combination, acting as trailblazers in the tricky conditions for those behind them, had opened up a small gap at the head of the field. They were being chased by Robin Yates and Nardis Alberts in the Durex Raceco, with Arnold and Estelle Mattia third in Derek Pinoy's old car, which won this event last year. Further down the field, matters were not going so smoothly. Mud, cars and crews combined to provide some comic relief. They called that fun. But there was more serious business at hand for the motorcyclists. The break between seasons had seen many changes in rider lineups, and team boss Butch Hirsch discusses KTM's prospects.
The spearhead of the team for the year is definitely Jeremy Davies, ex-South African champion, who's actually racing in the Parker 400 today, so we hope we're going to get a good result there. But for today, definitely Patrick Andrews, I'm sure he's going to get a win in the 500s, and John Hodgson for the 200s, riding a 125.
The minutes before the start are always a tense time for the motorcyclists. This is particularly true for riders with new teams, and Bird Paradise Kawasaki manager Hilton Beattie provides background to the team's rider lineup this season.
Well, I think we've got a very good team. We've got Errol Dalton on the 500, we've got Dirk Stradum on the 250, and we've got Yuri Himon on the 200. I think they're all very good riders, and we obviously put a lot of money into it. Bird Paradise have put a lot of money into it, and we're here to win.
The bikers followed a different route to the cars, but conditions were expected to be just as difficult. In the mud and sand, the smaller capacity machines, because of their lightness and maneuverability, were likely to come into their own. With superstars Jeremy Davies and Alfie Cox also competing in America, it looked to be anyone's race. The early running came from Patrick Andrews, who switched from the Winston Yamaha camp to join the KTM team. Kevin Tebbett lives and works at Sun City, and local knowledge was expected to work in his favour, with Mark Myron also running strongly on the Castrol Honda. Ronald Bailey, on another Castrol Honda, also got off to a good start. Behind him, there were a few problems for Gary Farmer, whose father Eric regularly raced cars at Kyalami a decade or two ago. Great things are expected this season from teenager Alex Vowles Jr. Errol Dalton was eventually forced to retire, and there was more tragedy for the Bird Paradise team when Dirk Stradom crashed heavily.
Well, about 7 k's from the start, under a big road crossing, they go through a corrugated iron pipe with bolts sticking out, and because of the mud, he lost his front wheel, and he went down at quite a speed. The bolt went through his right thigh and ripped his whole leg open, ripped all the muscles inside his leg, and apparently he's going to be out for a couple of weeks.
The field also included a large proportion of amateur riders. The top stars make it all look so easy, but for the less experienced, there are plenty of pitfalls along the way. Some falls are harder than others, but they're always a frustrating experience. Sun City 400 competitors also have to contend now and again with trains. Derek and Stephanie Pinoy and Robin Yates and Nardis Alberts had other things on their minds as they battled it out for the lead. Arnold and Estelle Mattia were still holding down third place, but were not making any real impression on the leaders, who were gradually opening up the gap. The Eriksson-van der Westhuizen combination were in a good fourth position, but starting to come under pressure from fifth place Popo Skeepers, a stuntman who also races powerboats. At this stage, Skeepers and Ivan Bartholomew were also leading Class 4. Gerrit Forster and Poen Oosthuizen were leading Class 6, with Richard Leek chasing after Skeepers in Class 5. Robert Walk was also going well, but nearly tangled with the train.
Oh, here comes the train! Go! Go! Here comes the train! Get it quick, quick!
Back on two wheels, Patrick Andrews was still leading on the 500 KTM, but had the rest of the pack snapping at his heels. Yuri Human on the 200 Kawasaki was closing in on Andrews, with the smaller machine's handling capability a major advantage. Kevin Tebbett was in third spot on the Honda, with John Hodgson working his way through the field on the 200 KTM. Saki Nimon, another Sun City employee, was in fifth place, but appeared to be struggling to maintain concentration. Reigning 200 class champion Brian Bontekoning is riding for Winston Yamaha this year and predicted the category would make history this year with overall victory in an event. Kevin Fisher was having a good ride on a Honda, with Ronald Bailey also holding on to a place in the top 10. Young Vowles was living up to his promise on the Kawasaki. Graham McLaughlin completed the top 10 at this stage. Back with the cars, the Pinoys had got the better of their duel with Robin Yates and Nardis Alberts and were looking likely winners. Eriksson and van der Westhuizen had moved ahead of Yates and Alberts and were in second place. Not far behind them were Adrie Roots and Philip Coetzee, who were having a great run in the VW Baja Bug. Gerrit Forster and Poen Oosthuizen were still leading Class 6, but with a sick-sounding motor, were in trouble. While spectators relaxed with beer and a braai, it was hard work for the likes of Wolf-Peter Pumpai, who was always in the top 10. Abdul Variawa and Hanif Hussein were also going steadily in their Baja Bug, with Freiberger, Henry Kirstein and Dries de Klerk still getting to grips with the ex-RP Reinecker Nissan Safari. A muddy Bert Greef was leading Class 9 in the Sandmaster, with Class 4 leaders Roger Hills and James von Veek making short work of a muddy section in the Ford SVM. Wayne Farmer, brother of Gary, also had his problems, and it was time again for a little more comic relief. There was nothing comic about Yuri Himon's performance on the Kawasaki 200. Himon had stormed into the lead and history was in the making. Patrick Andrews was now second, but leading the 500 class on the KTM, with Kevin Tebbett still third. John Hodgson was again consistency personified and in fourth place on another KTM, with 250 class leader Saki Nimon still looking a little ragged at times. British trials rider Mark Jackson, now living in South Africa, was going nowhere fast. But it was a different story for Derek and Stephanie Pinoy, who stormed into the Sun City Sports Centre arena for the last time to wrap up their third off-road victory as a team. The pair took the checkered flag from clerk of the course Dave McGregor to give Derek his third Camel Sun City 400 win.
The Camel Sun City 400, Derek and Stephanie Pinoy.
Well, the first lap it was muddy and we had to keep wiping our valves, especially behind Robin. That was, after that it just got easier, it got better.
How was the navigator?
Well, the navigator was fantastic, she did a great job. She never forgot where we had to go, it was good, fantastic.
There was plenty for the crowd to cheer about when locals Audrey Roots and Philip Coetzee came through in spectacular fashion to take second place. Overall victory went to the Pinoy pairing with plenty of familiar names in the top 8 placings. There were no finishers in classes 3 and 7, with the conditions extracting a heavy toll on machinery. The race cam was in place as a little bit of history was made when Yuri Himon Jr. came in first in the bike category to score the first overall win by a 200 class machine in a major South African off-road event.
Motorcycle home in the 1991 Camel Sun City 400.
It was a great performance by Himon, who was on special leave from the army to take part in the race. A delighted team manager, Hilton Beattie, was there to congratulate Himon.
Terrific win.
Die eerste ronde het 3 keer geval. Al die modder, dat was baie ouens geweest. Nadat het gewoond raak, was het baie beter. Maar het was baie lekker route. Voor 200 was het de beste selectie. Maar voor die 200 moest gewen het zo.
Lesotho rider Patrick Andrews on the big KTM 500 came through to take second place after a sterling ride, with most of the odds stacked against him. Kevin Tebbett was third, with John Hodgson and Saki Nimon completing the top 5. The class results saw Honda, KTM and Kawasaki all taking top positions, with Honda dominating the 250 class. The traditional champagne brought the curtain down on a great event, with plenty of off-road action still to come this year.